First now, Michael, 94.3 FM, The Talker. This is Sanity Check. And on the line today, Michael, we have my old co-pilot. We used to have a transport company, and Mr. O'Brien was my co-pilot. And we would talk about all kinds of subjects. And I got to tell you, there are a lot of people out there that think they know what they're talking about. There's a lot of these administrators that think they know what they're talking about, or they really need to be more informed. But Mr. O'Brien, you're one of the most informed individuals. Educate us a little bit on what this fair tax is and if that will help get rid of the IRS. Good morning.
Good morning, Lou. And we don't annoy our friends in the back of the van as well. He's driving crazy. Yeah, the fair tax, I'm by no means an expert. I don't mean an expert. I studied it. I've read about it. I don't spend, I have friends who read about it every day. They're proselytizing every day. But what it would do is it would eliminate the income tax and all the federal taxes, with the exception of excises, imposts, and tariffs, because those are constitutionally authorized. It would repeal the 16th Amendment. It would get rid of all corporate taxes. Now, a lot of people, they want to fight the corporations, which is kind of ridiculous, since the corporations are the people that give us our jobs. Mm-hmm. What would happen is, instead of the corporations being unpaid tax collectors, because they don't pay taxes, they collect them for the IRS, they would eliminate all of the costs, the waste that companies, all the waste that companies incur by collecting taxes for the federal government. And so what would happen is, one of the neat things about it is, number one, April 15th just becomes another fine spring day. Mm-hmm. People don't look forward to getting money back from the government, which is a phrase I always thought was kind of ridiculous, because you're not, it's like they're looking at it like the money is a gift from the government.
Right.
Your money, and they didn't even pay interest on it.
Right.
Of course, with the interest rates they are today, you wouldn't get anything anyway.
Right.
But the thing is this. Here's the important thing. People spend an inordinate amount of time in fear, because of the IRS.
Yes.
This is a gestapo organization. They have extra constitutional powers. I mean, you think about it. What agency of the government can go in and get your bank account without a warrant?
Yes.
They can try you without any constitutional protections at all. Not even a little bit. You actually sue them, which makes you the person. It's like the prosecutor, has to prove his case. You have to prove your case to the government.
Now, the former governor of New Mexico, Gary Johnson, he ran on the Libertarian ticket for president. He has been a big advocate or certainly pushed the fair tax. Now, as I understand it, and one of the things, Michael, that we always do, and Tim, what we do here is, what we try to do is educate our listeners as much as possible. Tell them to go look these things up, and at least the word is starting. We want people to start hearing fair tax. What is the fair tax? Now, as I understand it, this does get introduced every year in Congress, and it usually gets tabled. But Michael, you know what's nice about the fair tax is, as I understand it, I think the bill is approximately 50 pages long.
That's it. Wow.
It's very brief.
And I wanted to bring it, Tim, you brought up a valid point. Our justice system is based on innocent until proven guilty.
Right, not in the tax court.
Not in the tax court. So the constitutionally, I think it's flawed immediately. And one of the things I want to say, to make it clear with the folks, is, Tim, the fair tax. How is that tax collected? What is that? What does that look like as far as people paying?
It's a point of sale tax. When you go to buy a loaf of bread or a new car, you pay the tax. It's an inclusive tax. It's about 23%. That's the stated percentage. And what happens is, just to make clear, when we get rid of all these other taxes, the cost of collecting those taxes goes away.
Yes.
So the cost of the goods and services will come down. So when you add the tax back in, you're probably paying about the same amount you would have paid before without the tax component. So if you're paying $1 now, you'll still pay approximately $1 for a product. But it's only on new goods and new services, not on used. So if you buy a used car or a used house, you don't pay the tax. It's already been taxed.
And one of the things, Tim, that we had talked about last night. So, Mike, say a can of soda right now costs $1, and you hear 20. Let's just use 25%, just so things are, so people could get their hands around it. So there's a tax of 20%. Well, if there's already a corporate tax built into that, Tim, as I understand that, so what would happen is it's already built in, Michael. So in other words, like the cost product would be like 80 cents. So when you build it back in, because now the corporations only pass on the tax that they're collecting in the first place.
Correct.
So we have to get our arms around this. Tim, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mike.
One of the things, Tim, what you're describing, and I think what I myself personally am looking to have control back into my life. And by doing it this way, I can decide how much tax I'm going to pay. Am I going to buy the new fancy car or the used car that I don't have to pay tax on?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, let's face it. You know, another key component that people don't realize is we have a big trade deficit.
Yes.
We can't sell our products overseas. Our products all go with taxes attached to them.
Right.
Now, if you take those taxes away, our products go over cheaper.
Yes.
And I was going to bring that up. What does that do to when we? Can you imagine the investment flowing into this country?
Companies would come flooding back. Yeah. We'd have jobs, so many jobs, we wouldn't have enough people. We'd have to import aliens into the country to take the jobs that we wouldn't have enough people.
Right. And Tim, you brought up the cost of the IRS, and I was watching something last night on TV, and if I understood this correctly, over the last 4 years, in bonuses alone to the IRS agents, it's exceeded $92 million in 4 years. That's just the bonuses.
It's insane. This is it's a big cancer in our society.
Yes.
And we have to remove it. Now, a lot of people like Ron Paul, even Peter Schiff have said, let's get rid of the IRS completely, get rid of the income tax, and replace it with nothing. I think that's a bit short-sighted. We have a monumental debt. We have programs that we kind of have to keep in place, like Social Security, for a while. I don't believe in them. I think they should be eliminated. However, we can't just cut people loose. We've promised to pay. They've paid into it. With the fair tax, these programs are still funded without, like everybody says, well, I paid into Social Security. I want my money. Well, if you're doing it when you're paying for a can of soda or whatever the case may be, you don't have that emotional attachment to these programs as you would before. So as we go along, we can slowly, through attrition, eliminate these unconstitutional, first of all, programs and uneconomic programs. We can get rid of them, and without hurting anybody. Also,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One other thing I want to make a point is that right now, when people come to the country, they use our goods and services, even on vacation. Well, the thing is, now if they come in, they're actually paying a tax.
Okay.
So our vacationers, these people coming to visit our country, would actually pay for your Social Security.
Right.
It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, one of the things that he brought up was that I foresee the future that when we talk about all these businesses coming back, that there could potentially be a reduction in that fair tax.
Absolutely. Well, you think about it as we get rid of our debt.
Right.
Because we could actually, if we got rid of the Federal Reserve, it's another subject.
Oh, yes.
That we could obviate their debt completely because they created that out of thin air.
Yeah.
So we can get rid of that debt, which would cut down the debt tremendously, and we can slowly chip away what we owe other people and other governments that have bought our debt, and eventually the federal government's costs will go down exponentially.
Yes.
And that's a really important thing, is to get rid of this huge government.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tim, this was a great start, Michael.
Awesome.
I think we're going to have you back again, Tim, if that's okay, and we could get into this a little bit more in depth. But usually what we do is that we try to start floating some of these issues out there so people could start getting their arms around them a little bit. The fair tax, I think you could go to fairtax.org. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. And there's so much. You have the information on the sponsors and co-sponsors. There's 70 co-sponsors in the House and 8 in the Senate. That's not enough. We need to get on the horn.
But let's start that conversation.
Let's push our legislators.
Let's let people start hearing the name, so it's not so spooky anymore.
Right.
And then once that starts happening, just start envisioning a time when perhaps we don't have to worry. The IRS